These days, it's practically law that we have to film pretty much everything we do and post it to social media. When we're out and about on the bikes, the action camera gold standard is of course the GoPro, but with a hefty price tag of around £400 or $500 for the latest one, I can't help feeling that most of that cash is going on the name. With this in mind, I thought I would see what a budget action camera could do. As action cameras go, they don't get much more budget than the H9 from Gearbest. Retailing for around £30 or $40, yes, you heard me right, it's got to be a load of rubbish, right? Well, think again. Like all of these review films, let's start with what's in the box. Well, there's quite a lot actually. Of course there's the camera, but there's also a nice little selection of versatile mounts that enable you to start using the H9 pretty much straight away. These include a waterproof housing so you can even film underwater if that's the sort of business you're into. There's a bike mount, a helmet side mount, plus all of the connectors and tethers. It also comes with a USB charger and lead, although mine has the US style plug. Fortunately though, I can use any suitable USB charger. As you can see, the camera itself looks very much like a GoPro Hero. Now inevitably there will be some comparisons, but I think a direct side-by-side Pepsi challenge would be a little unfair, as these two cameras are at complete opposite ends of the price spectrum. To give you some idea, back in 2013 I paid £300 or $380 for my GoPro Hero 3. By contrast, as I said earlier, Gearbest was selling this camera a couple of weeks ago for around £30 or $40. So for anyone that isn't a Stephen Hawking's maths genius, that's a tenth of the price of the GoPro. But does that mean that the H9 is only a tenth as good as the GoPro? Well, I'm under no illusions. There have to be some compromises to produce a camera this cheaply, but surprisingly it's not that bad. In fact, I'll say right away that the H9 is a pretty good camera for the money. Before we get too deep into the technical aspects of the H9, let's go through some of its features. It has Wi-Fi connectivity, a micro HDMI port to connect it to a TV, and a 2-inch LCD screen so you can actually see what you're shooting. The camera itself has a nice wide 170-degree lens and can shoot HD or 4K video. It comes complete with a battery which, according to the manual, takes around 5 hours to charge and lasts between an hour and an hour and a half depending on whether you're shooting 4K or HD. If you need more batteries, they can be bought very cheaply from the Gearbest website. Just like the GoPros, the H9 has 4 shooting modes: video, stills, burst and time-lapse, and it stores everything on a micro SD card. If you use a 16 gig card, you can shoot 34 minutes of 4K footage or over 2 hours of HD. Accessing the camera's settings is intuitive and straightforward via the menus and the screen. Press the button on the front of the camera to change modes, the top button to enter and select a menu item, and the up and down buttons to scroll through the different options. Actually using the camera is quick and easy. Just place the mounts, attach the camera and away you go. Like all action cams, where you mount them and how you use them is down to your imagination. If you download the free app, you can even control the camera remotely via Wi-Fi with your smartphone. So what does the footage look like? Well, here are a few clips that I shot in HD. As you can see, it looks pretty good, although it didn't perform quite so well in low light situations. As you can see here, the image is pretty dark and very grainy, and to be honest, I'm not all that surprised, as this is the first of the compromises that I mentioned. And naturally, the H9 records sound. Now 9 times out of 10, if you're using the camera on your bike, all you're going to get is the sound of the wind rushing past the microphone, and you're probably not going to use it. But just in case you want to do little pieces to camera or something involving sound, this is what it will sound like. All in all, not bad for a $40 action cam, but what are the other compromises that I mentioned earlier? Well, the big one is picture quality. Shooting in HD or even 4K may sound all fine and dandy, but this only refers to the size of the image and says nothing of frame rate or bit rate, which also has an important effect. So let's first look at frame rate. The H9 will shoot HD at 30 and 60 frames a second. In my opinion, this gives a slightly artificial look, but it has the advantage of making it look smoother, particularly if you want to do some slow-mo effects later. If you want to do some serious slow-mo, you can even reduce the resolution down to 720 and shoot at 120 frames a second. When shooting 4K though, you only have the option of 25 frames a second. Some might see this lower frame rate as a slight disadvantage, but for me, this is my preferred setting for normal video, as I feel it looks a lot more cinematic. Unfortunately, there's no option to shoot HD at 25 frames a second, so if you want to shoot at this rate, you have to do it in 4K. Having said all of this, I know people who've bought GoPros and pay absolutely no attention at all to their frame rates. Bitrate is all important when it comes to final image quality. It's basically how much information is stored in each of the 30 still images or frames that go together to make up a single second of moving video. Put very simply, the higher the bitrate, the more picture information is stored in each frame, and the higher the picture quality. If I can be a bit techie for a moment, this particular 10-second clip was shot in HD at 30 frames a second. As you can see, the file itself is 17.9 megabytes. Now while this isn't bad, I've calculated the bit rate to be around 14.3 megabits a second. Now to put that into some kind of context, I've always worked on the basis of 25 megabits a second as being a minimum standard, and if you look closely, you'll see that parts of the image look a little pixelated. But again, it's a $40 action cam. If you're just going out on your bike and you want to have a bit of fun filming your rides, it should be fine. If you want to remake some kind of weird bike-based version of Battleship Potempkin though, I think you might struggle. In conclusion, I thought the H9 was easy to use, great fun, and above all, fantastic value for money. Having a screen and seeing what you were shooting was fantastic. Yes, you could go out and spend a fortune on the latest GoPro. You'd certainly get better image quality, but would it really be worth the extra cash? Also, just after shelling out that extra cash, they'd probably bring out the next all-singing, all-dancing version a week later. If you can live with the lower image quality, you'd save yourself a shed load of cash, which you could probably go out and spend on an entry-level bike for winter riding, and I'm not even kidding. The bottom line is that the H9 is a very budget-friendly action camera and is more than capable of producing usable footage that can be edited and shared with your online chums via social media. So that's the H9 action camera. Thanks for watching.